Hey, what's up guys, Riff here. So today we're going to be talking about the recently released Netflix series, Tomb Raider: The Legend of Lara Croft. Now this is a series described as thrusting into a high-stakes chase around the world, fearless adventurer Lara Croft confronts her traumatic past while unraveling an ancient mystery. Now, a lot of people on social media, Twitter in particular, have been praising this series, and also some games journalists have been praising this series as well, making some bold headlines like this one from CBR, claiming that this series just fixed 28 years of Tomb Raider mistakes. On top of that, we have this Guardian article saying, "Goodbye cartoon breasts, hello sweat stains. The feminist reinvention of Tomb Raider." And just like a lot of the people in this scenario, when the Guardian claims this is a act of feminism or strength when involving these characters, they are largely referring to identity characteristics and not something like personalities, story writing, anything like that. The identity of these characters are what define them in the eyes of the author of this article and some of the people singing the praise of this series. So it's not too surprising to you at that point to see that this show is tanking. The reviews are really bad. Even IGN gave this a 5 out of 10, and IGN is almost a surefire bet to give a 7 out of 10 to basically everything they review in terms of media, and even they, with their woke agenda, gave this a 5 out of 10, and IMDb did a similar rating with a 5.6, and you can see the audience rating is also very low. However, this has been very surprising to people on Twitter. When they see these low ratings, they're confused because they look around on Twitter. You can type in Tomb Raider, and you can see overall on social media, this is getting a lot of praise. People are going crazy over it. But the reason they're going crazy over it is not because of story writing, character progression, anything like that. It's because they like the identity characteristics of this show and how these characters are being portrayed in terms of their sexuality and things like that. And really overall, there is a great departure of what we normally expected from Tomb Raider, and in particular the character Lara Croft. Okay, they have changed her in many noticeable ways. You can see this compilation from Netflix Geeked here of her various outfits and appearances throughout this series. And as always with these sorts of posts, like this account with no punctuation and then using Zoomer language is just on character for this sort of an account. But anyways, you can see the variations here, including this bizarre Dr. Disrespect looking variation here, which is interesting to say the least. But overall, I think it's undeniable that those outfits and appearances are definitely a great departure from what you've normally expected from this franchise, whether it's the remastered version of Lara Croft or the live action with Angelina Jolie. There's definitely a departure. Now, a lot of people on Twitter would hear or notice these observations I made, and they'll start getting very angry without listening to anything I'm going to say. But I don't really care if you prefer the latest iteration or the older iterations of this character. You have to acknowledge there's clearly a difference, and to some people that matters. You have a certain body type, the typical silhouette figure that this character has had for decades at this point, and then it changes pretty drastically. Some people don't like that if they've been following this franchise for a long time, and I don't think they're wrong for not liking these new differences to the design of this character. And on top of that, there is some other major changes to Lara Croft, including the fact that she is now a lesbian. So you can see briefly here that they have now made her a lesbian, and it's like a classic Disney executive move right here. And you can see this is also her girlfriend right here, who is apparently a non-binary individual, according to the director of this series, and someone who had their name changed from Jill to Joey because, of course. And also, a lot of people are just really focusing on these changes to Lara Croft and the fact that she is now a lesbian. It seems like it's just your typical pandering, and a lot of people on social media are focusing on that aspect of her character more than they are her actual personality and the things she's doing and the story writing, the character progression, but that's not too surprising. And on top of this, with this character right here, a lot of people are looking at the design of this character and then the director of the series, and they're claiming this is yet another self-insert in modern media. But going forward, there's some other changes to Lara Croft. who has been viewed as a very tough character for many different reasons. And as pointed out in this video, one of the things she's doing the most here is a lot of crying. Lots and lots of crying. In fact, there's probably a lot more tears shed than there are tombs raided at this point. And, I will make this very clear. I'm not some brutes. I'm not some caveman who's saying, crying is always a form of weakness. In fact, I think in many cases it can be an act of strength, right? It doesn't make a character weak, but when it happens every 2 seconds, when there's a point where she's shedding more tears than she is words out of her mouth, it gets to be a little ridiculous. And a lot of people are looking at the way she behaves in this show and saying this is not the tough character that we have always identified with. This is a character who seems to be a bit of departure and honestly looks like a damsel in distress at many points throughout this show. And on top of that, that's not the only character to be completely rewritten. We have this character named Zip from the Tomb Raider games who has now been changed from a canonically straight character to a gay character as well. And a lot of people are looking at the over-the-top behavior of this character throughout the series, and they're considering him yet another just stereotype for the sake of existing in these shows to include whatever ideology they want to into these products. And on top of that, we're seeing a series of articles praising this show up and down. Some of the more really active ones in the scene, even IGN and those, they're not singing the praises too much of the show, but over at The Guardian, they are very, very happy with this show, with this headline, "Goodbye Cartoon Breasts, Hello Sweat Stains, the feminist reinvention of Tomb Raider. Finally, Lara Croft no longer looks like a strong wind could knock her over. Netflix's new animated series boldly reimagines the adventurer with no thought to the male gaze." Oh, ding, ding, ding. The ultimate buzz phrase right there, the male gaze. But there's a lot to unpack with this headline and description. So right from the beginning, they're calling her and the series a feminist reinvention of Tomb Raider. Now, this is odd because to me, I'm just confused as to why the Lara Croft we've known for decades was not already considered a feminist character, someone who could be looked up to by women, right? She is a tough, independent character who really, I don't understand what changed. Because the only thing that's changed with this series is some of her identity. That the fact that she is now a lesbian and things like that. So does that make someone more of a feminist than before? I don't really understand what is drastically changed other than her outward appearance and her preference in terms of sexuality. But anyways, there's also this mention right here that she no longer looks like a strong wind would knock her over, which, this is written by a female author and leave it to women to constantly body shame and knock down other women and female characters. But then they continue to talk about this male gaze. There's no thought of the male gaze in this animation. But what do you call stuff like this? On Twitter, you'll find plenty of posts like this thirsting after this new iteration of the character. This one with nearly 13 million views, over 50,000 likes, saying, "I want to do some lesbianism with her." And this is a safe take right now. You can say whatever you want about this character because she's been designated as something safe to talk about because of secondary characteristics. And we know that other counterparts, if this was your more traditional anime character from whatever seasonal show that's out right now, if you said something like this, on the flip side, you would probably get dogpiled, right? You'd probably have death threats coming in within the first 10 minutes. That's how Twitter operates. It's very weird how some get designated as safe because of the identity of the character or the perceived identity of the character in many other cases beyond the Tomb Raider example here. But anyways, they continue on with some interesting reflections on realism and how realistic this new design of Lara Croft is. So they're referring to the original design. They say this: the most influential female protagonist of her genre, Lara redefined what women can and can't do in the world of video gaming. Compared to the burly men shooting games, she had a real appeal, says her designer Toby Gard, who originally intended her to be a guy in some tombs before he decided to go in another direction. She was mysterious and had a danger about her, and this gave her a real difference to other female game characters that were basically sex objects. Also, I was very keen to get Lara to animate properly, with no one else at the time was doing. This made her move slowly but look realistic, which helped players empathize with her. So again, this whole talk about this feminist reinvention of this character in this franchise, isn't this kind of what feminism would look like? Like, wouldn't this be a feminist icon, right? So she goes into a genre of video games at the time that had very few female leads, let alone ones that just weren't simple sex objects, and was dominating, being this powerful force in the video game industry that was respected by players. Wouldn't that be like a feminist icon right there? But all of a sudden now something so drastic has changed. But there's going to be some responses by the author here about this, claims that she was more realistic back then. So they say this: realistic, of course, is in the eye of the beholder. For her high adrenaline exploits, Lara wore a tight tank and teeny shorts, all the better to accentuate those gravity-defying breasts, but also her slender waist, arms, and legs. She moved with the grace of a ballerina, opting for unnecessary handstands and swallow dives whenever she could, and spoke with the clipped confidence cadence of a BBC newsreader, even if she was just uttering a stern no to gamers attempting to force her through a locked door. Hey, she had agency. What a weird thing to say. So we see this whole talk about this gravity-defying body of hers and how unrealistic it used to be before with designs like this. And a lot of people pointed out, this is the voice actor of this Netflix version of the character. And they're talking about the previous designs being unrealistic. This seems like a lot of coping and misdirection to me. But I also wanted to quickly highlight this CBR headline right here. This is absolutely crazy. The audacity of this author to say this. Tomb Raider, The Legend of Lara Croft review. Netflix just fixed 28 years of Tomb Raider mistakes. Yes, this series fixed basically 3 decades of this franchise. This, I'll remind you, extremely respected and successful franchise. It's been fixed by this series that is getting terrible reviews from anyone who's not just praising it because of identity politics or the fact that they just want to join in on the bandwagon on Twitter of people praising the show. But yeah, anyways, that's going to do it for this video. As always, feel free to talk or share your opinions about today's topics in the comment section down below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.